He's the deal lawyer, and he's the certified coach. Find out what happens when these two professionals talk about universal questions and topics that require insightful answers. This week, the guys meet to talk about. This episode starts now.
Good morning. Good morning. How are y'all doing today?
Good morning, everyone. Good morning.
Well, we're back at it again, PJ. And today, I think we're going to have a pretty interesting subject. It's dealing with narcissists. And, there's a lot of people out there right now, a lot of talk about who may or may not be a narcissist. There's some who believe Kim Kardashian, Kanye West, President Trump,
Deion Sanders.
So there's a lot of people out there where people are thinking, okay, these people are narcissists. And so what do you do in that situation? And thank you for joining, Stephen. Thank you, everybody, for joining here. So do you run and hide from them, or how do you deal with them? And so what we're trying to talk about today is how to deal with a narcissist and difficult personalities and those kinds of things. And again, y'all, we really want you guys, if you can, to like and to share. And this is a collaborative project here, so please chime in with your questions and everything else. We really appreciate that. But PJ,
hey, Rose.
Yes. What is a narcissist?
Well, there's 3 core tenets to noticing a narcissist. And actually, that's a great question, because everybody thinks, oh, I know what a narcissist is. It's someone who thinks too highly of themselves. That's a good surface level understanding, but it's much deeper than that. So a way to help everyone remember it or see this in terms of a narcissist is think of it in 3 E's. I like to think in 3 E's for people, because that's how people remember. So 1 E of the narcissist would be, this is the person who is has an exaggerated sense of worth and self, and it's really far blown. Like, you can't tell them anything. You can be talking to them and they'll still just go right into something else. Another E is that they tend to be very entitled and exploitative.
Oh.
Right? So once they get a sense that you're weaker and they're stronger, they will play upon that. So they have to be careful of that. So that's the second E.
So it was exploitative, entitled, and what was the other one?
And exaggerated.
Exaggerated.
And that last one that you'll recognize is it's a lack of another E, and that is empathy. So another way you can note this narcissist is they have zero empathy. They can't feel anything for anyone else, just themselves.
Well, and then I want to go to another definition. I'm getting this one from the Urban Dictionary. The Urban Dictionary.
The Urban Dictionary.
That's right, the Urban Dictionary. That's what we're going right now. And it says a narcissist is a person with no soul.
Ouch.
The only thing bigger than their inflated ego is the void that they demand others to fill. Now, that is a pretty harsh definition of a narcissist.
Yes.
No soul. Wow. Oh, wow. And so Ms. Ahmed just said, I meet many on Facebook. And, and it brings up a great point. It brings up a good point, too, because with the narcissist, many of us, we're taking our selfies, and I take a selfie from time to time. We're on Facebook, we're using social media, and many are arguing that more and more society is going more towards a narcissistic society.
It's correct. It's correct. And sometimes it's hard to see them, because when is it just an extrovert, or is it a narcissist? And sometimes people don't know the difference between them, because narcissists sometimes, a lot of times, are extroverts, even though they can also be introverts.
And can they be good people, or is it necessarily a bad thing to be a narcissist?
Well, that's the question. I think if it's extreme, anything done to the extreme is going to be considered bad. So there is the idea of getting NPD, which is narcissistic personality disorder. So it is a mental illness when it's taken to this fullest extreme. But can everyone have a certain garden variety of narcissism? Absolutely. Okay.
Well, so then, I remember back in high school when we were studying narcissism, we talked about Greek mythology, and there was this guy, Narcissus, who was, walking out, and I think there was another lady that was there, Echo,
Yeah.
and he couldn't get her attention or didn't get her attention or whatever, and then looked at himself in the water and then saw his image and fell in love with himself.
Yes.
And that's how we got the word now, narcissism or narcissist or whatever. And so when he was looking in the pond and looking at himself, was that such a bad thing after all? Or, I mean, because we all look in the mirror.
Right,
we all,
right.
Do those kinds of things.
Well, I think it's okay in terms of if you're trying to get a sense of who you are and you're trying to locate yourself. That could be fine. That bit of paying attention to self could be a good thing. Again,
Okay.
it's once it goes to the extreme to where now what you do is you hurt other people because you have no soul. In other words, I'm so important that even though I'm wounding people around me, it's okay because I need this for me to be better because of what I've been through. And so they can never relate to anyone else. And so that's when it goes too far. But the idea of recognizing yourself is not necessarily a bad thing, and wanting to be better, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah. Well, our issue is in the negotiation context.
Yes.
Or in the employment context.
Yes.
When you are walking around the office or you're going to have to interact with somebody and you always need to know who is your counterpart. Who are you dealing with?
Yes.
And how would you be able to determine you were dealing with a narcissist?
So again, you're going to be looking at exaggeration. So there's two types of narcissism, right?
Okay.
There's two types of narcissists. There's the covert one, and then there's the one who's overt. So the
Okay.
overt one's a little easy because they're showing it to you, they're putting it on display, and they don't care that you know that they're a narcissist. In fact, if you were to have them, if you asked a narcissist, so on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you say with your narcissism? They wouldn't see it as a bad thing. They'd say, "Oh, I'm an 8 or 9." They don't know that narcissism is negative and has a bad connotation because it means vain and someone who's only self-seeking.
Well, what about self-love? Like, what's
Self-love
wrong with
is-
self-love?
Self-love is good, but and I love that you bring that up because see, self-love is good, but usually self-love is coming in because you've had to deal with a narcissist. Because a narcissist will leave you drained and make you feel like you've never had anything. In fact, when we talk about narcissism, we have to understand where it comes from. And sometimes if you have a lot of times family is what creates a narcissist because they tell you you're deficient. So what does the narcissist want to do? Create a safety barrier around
Okay.
them that says, I'm okay, I'm not that. So now they create this other self to defend themselves against maybe feeling inadequate. So the narcissist actually is, in a lot of cases, insecure. But to defend myself, I overblow it and make you think I'm not insecure.
Yeah. So, and if you guys are just joining us, we're
Yes.
we're talking about narcissists
Yes.
and how to deal with one, and identifying them. I don't know if any of you have dealt with a narcissist and how you've handled it, but that's what we're going to be addressing today. And so, I did a lot of research.
Okay.
Did a lot of research.
And you
on
would,
this.
good attorney would do that.
Yeah. And in my research in this, and also in my experience and everything else, what you find when you Google narcissism and how to deal with one, you'll find that a lot of the articles are about people going through divorces. Somehow, the most stuff written about it is people going through a bad divorce and their spouse or ex-spouse was a narcissist.
Yes.
And how absolutely impossible it was to be able to go through it.
Yeah. Well, and in fact, to that end, I'm glad that you brought that up. That word narcissism is one of the most Googled words on the internet.
Is that right?
And there's a ton of videos, and you're right. It's in the context of mostly relationships between a couple. So a lot of times it's marriage, but it's also dating.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times you'll see articles that say, "Help, I'm dating a narcissist," or "Help, I'm married to a narcissist," and then of course now, "Help, I'm working for a narcissist."
Hey, good morning, Diana. Good morning, everybody joining us. Again, hello, good morning. Be sure to
Yes.
like and be sure to share. And we're talking about narcissists.
Yes.
And I'm going to tell you right now, if you are in a situation where you are dealing with a narcissist, I'm going to give you point number one. Yeah. Point number one is get out.
Like the movie. Right?
Well, and so that's what everybody says, and that is in fact some of the best advice out there. If it's the
see you, Rich.
clinical
Catherine,
definition
Casey.
of narcissism or whatever, or being a narcissist, it's a very, very difficult situation. And if you are capable of getting out of the situation, you should do so.
That's exactly right. And so to your point, and I'll match with you there on that. And so my number one on this would also be to know thyself, because what narcissists look for are triggers. They look for somebody who's weaker than, so that they can then follow and build this person up and get this person to like them, and then boom, they show them who they really are. So first thing I would say is know yourself, know what your triggers are. And when you know what your triggers are, you then know what you need to defend if you happen to suspect that someone's a narcissist.
Well, so are there people who might be more prone to being caught up in the web of the narcissist?
Yeah, you take any job that's a high-performance stress job, that will sometimes draw out the narcissist, because if you're keeping a performance schedule on the wall and they see themselves up there, then they're going to talk about how they're great. If there's any kind of outwards accolade, that will create it. Also, another thing that will create it is in terms of strengths. Certain personalities will. So someone that's actually a strength in the 34 strengths in strengths-based psychology called self-assurance.
Okay.
There's actually a strength of self-assurance. So if that's turned all the way to 10, that can also become someone who would suffer with narcissism.
So what we're talking about then is, number one, if you're in a situation where you're negotiating with a narcissist, or you are in an occupation, if you can get out, get out.
Absolutely.
And then also know thyself. Know the types of personalities where a narcissist is going to be attracted to, and those kinds of situations.
That's exactly right. We got to check it.
Number two is if you're stuck and you can't get out, and you have to deal with this person, then you need to know what you want, and then you need to know what they want, and let's start with what they want. They're going to make that real clear to you. You're going to need to ask them questions, and they're going to be happy to talk about it, because they are, from past experience and also from just research, a narcissist cares about how they're viewed and how others view them, and they're going to want to get what they want. They don't care what you get.
That's
and
right.
that's why it's extremely important for you to know what you want, and you may not necessarily be able to even communicate it to the narcissist, because part of the thing is they want to win at all costs.
That's
and they
right.
have to believe and feel that way. And so you need to walk into that negotiation, or you need to know in the employee-employer situation, what it is you're trying to achieve. And I wouldn't necessarily tell the narcissist.
I agree. The closer you can play this to the vest with a narcissist, the better you can do that. The best for you, because what's going to happen is that narcissist is going to, again, these are people who are very manipulative. A lot of times it's because they're trying to protect their own self-interest. So they're saying it's either you or me, and I'm not going to be in the position of being the person who's on the wrong side of the bus. I'm going to make sure I'm always the bus. I'm always going to be the hammer. You're always going to be the nail. So they look for the person who can be the nail. And so if that's the case to them, everyone looks like a nail if they're weaker or empathetic. They prey on empaths.
So again, you're hearing this now. There's the hammer and there's the nail. Do you want to be a nail? So if you're stuck in that situation, it is what it is. But that's what happens when you're involved in a narcissist relationship, and you're dealing with a narcissist. And so it is so important that you focus and know and analyze in the negotiation setting, in the employer-employee setting, what is it you're trying to achieve? And you must focus on that, and at the same time, not necessarily disclose it to the narcissist.
That's right. That's right. So, and I would say that when you're also dealing with a narcissist, keep in mind what you're going to experience is a bunch of projections, and the projections are going to be to the extent of, it's not my fault. I'm actually the one that's trying to help us in this situation. You're the one that's bringing this up. You're the one bringing it down. And so what they're doing is they're always going to switch blame to you. But when they do that, understand it's just a projection. And when it comes to projections, we always say, you don't own other people's projections, because that's them who's malfunctioning at the moment, not you.
Well, and in that process of figuring out what they want and knowing what you want, would you recommend kissing up to the narcissist?
I think that's tough. I don't know that I would. I think I'd want to play the indifference card. Like, I got to let them know you're not having any effect on me at all, because that will make them kind of back up. What they're looking for is any sign of weakness, and they may take kissing up as weakness. So I will try to find the most indifferent way to say whatever it is I need to say to the narcissist, and then move on, get out of there. Like you said, get out of there.
Yeah, and so, I've seen some have argued, oh, if you're going to be stuck in a negotiation, you either be indifferent, or some have said you do kiss up. But I think that's a dangerous.
I think it's dangerous.
I think it is dangerous. You have to be real careful about that. But it is an approach for sure. And so the third point I'd like to talk about related to dealing with a narcissist is, I think, pretty important here, and it's just sticking to the facts.
Yes.
And the objectivity and everything.
Yes, love that.
Because
That's
back
good.
to your point again, if you show emotion or get caught up in the projection or all those kinds of things, that is what will cause a narcissist to feel, okay, there's weakness and they're going to come after you.
That's right.
And so what's important is to be very objective in a negotiation if you're going back and forth. Again,
Love that.
hopefully you could get out of the negotiation and don't have to deal with them, or you're not in that situation. But if you are there, then it is extremely important to stick to things as in return on investment, advantages and disadvantages, but can be backed by evidence, those kinds of things.
I think, and good boundaries, right? Just set some good boundaries. I think the one trick here, and I love what you're saying about that, Steve, is have realistic expectations when you're dealing with a narcissist. And what I mean by that is, don't think that somehow you're going to come in there and you're just going to win them over. That's not their deal. Or don't think, from an empathetic standpoint, give them the benefit of the doubt and start feeling sorry, because they will take that as a moment of weakness. So you have to have real expectations. You also can't say, I'm going to go into this thing thinking I can change this narcissist, because some of the people have been carrying around this narcissism for years. So don't take on that fool's errand of thinking, my expectation is I'll win them over because I'm also very winsome, but I'm just not narcissistic.
So what should your expectation be when you're dealing with a narcissist?
Get in and get out. Say what needs to be said, be indifferent about it, don't show an emotion one way or the other, and get out.
You hear that, folks? Get in and get out.
That's right.
Because the longer you stay in, the more likely you are going to be abused.
Yes, because they're trained for it. Because if we look at how the narcissist is built, a lot of times it's built because you've got this finger-wagging parent that makes this child feel like they're nobody, right? And so then the child has to create some sort of defense against that, because it makes them feel horrible. So they're masters of hypersensitivity. They understand they're sensitive to a lot of things, but they would rather offend you than be the person who's offended, because that makes them feel like they have power. Because they didn't have power when someone older, a parent, was just totally wagging the finger at them and making them feel small.
Okay.
So it's actually a self-preservation mechanism, which is not the bad part of it, but it's when it's prolonged, it turns into nobody else matters, just me. And you might hear them always saying, it's me against the world, it's me against the world all the time. Well, but you can't carry the world. You're not Atlas. And even Atlas tried and he couldn't. So this whole idea of making everything me against the world, yeah.
That becomes tough. And so, we've been talking about how to deal with a narcissist in a negotiation and in an employee-employer context. And we talked about 3 ways to do it. Number 1 being get out, if you can do that.
Yes.
The next point was know what you want and know what they want. And finally, the third point was sticking to the facts and being objective. Have you, in your coaching experience and everything, ever have to coach a narcissist?
There was one client that I did take on that I suspected was a narcissist, and I was right. He was. And I was doing everything I could to just say, this isn't for you, we couldn't do this. And then I decided, okay, this might be a challenge. So against my own better judgment, I said, I'm sturdy enough, I can do this. And it took me maybe 3 sessions with this guy, and I had to fire him.
Yeah.
I had to fire him.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because I could see, and here's why. I had to fire him because I could see that there was no way that this guy would give even an inch or quarter his delusion about himself, his exaggeration of himself was so thick that anything get said to him, he couldn't even take it anywhere remotely constructive.
Yeah, where the studies show where you find a lot of narcissism is in politics.
Yeah.
Star and entertainment.
Fancy that.
And so there's these lists that go around and everything, and I'm not saying they're right or not, but some historically to help you try to figure out whether or not you're dealing with one. Alexander the Great was once thought of as being a narcissist. Henry VIII, Napoleon, Hitler.
Yeah.
Madonna's on the list.
Wow, Madonna made the list, huh?
And by the way, most narcissists will admit, from what I understand, they will admit they're a narcissist.
That's right.
Because, hey, they wear it as a badge of honor.
Yeah.
And Miley Cyrus. And then I talked about this earlier, sent this out, Kim Kardashian, Kanye West.
Right.
President Donald Trump. Even Mariah Carey. They say Mariah Carey is sort of narcissist. And again, it's not necessarily bad. I think all of us have a little narcissism in us.
Yes.
Would you say that, or maybe we should use a different word?
I agree. Because there is a sense of self-confidence that a lot of us can attain or get to, and I think that's fine when it's self-confidence. But when you start talking about narcissism, that is all about self-absorption. And so how do you help in the society situation or in the context of a team if everything's all about you and you having to win all the time at every situation, always have to look at the smartest in the room, the best in the room, the sharpest in the room? That will destroy any team dynamic, and especially if it's the leader that's acting that way.
Yeah.
Right? So I do have a couple of stats real fast for you. So when you talk about narcissistic abuse, the stat is this, that there's over 158 million people in the U.S. who suffer from narcissistic abuse, like people who are the subjects or the former targets of narcissists. 158 million. So when you put that in context, there's only 326 million people in the United States, but 128 million people have been the targets of narcissists. Right?
Wow, that's amazing.
Right? Because you know how they are. And so then the narcissistic abuse is so prevalent that it actually rivals depression.
Okay.
So there's an equal number of people who are depressed, but there's a same number of people who have actually been the experience or the target of a narcissist.
Okay. Hey, any of y'all have you had to interact with a narcissist? Please chime in. Let us know. Because let's take advantage of this opportunity. We got PJ Dunn, the Dr. Phil of Dallas here, and he can help. And we want to take advantage of this. From the negotiation standpoint, one of the first parts of the process of negotiating is understanding who you are and who you're negotiating with. And there are so many personality types out there. And it becomes very complex. And you do have to sort of try to figure where someone fits in sort of the personality spectrum to figure out and devise a plan and how you're going to go about the negotiation. And I'll tell you what, one of the most difficult ones is the narcissist. Because over and over again, what you learn is the first factor we said, or the first step is potentially dealing with one, is to don't deal with them. To don't get in the situation. And hopefully also the way you don't get in the situation is being to identify them. And so we've laid out a lot of those points today, the 3 E's and those kinds of things, which is entitlement. And what were the other two?
So the exaggerated sense of wealth,
the
entitlement, and then of course the exploitation, and then you could make it 4 E's, the lack of empathy in these folks.
And so we have to definitely look at that. Good morning, Anastasia. Thank you for joining. Thank you, everybody. And so again, we're talking about narcissism, and for, the other way to define it, I love my Urban Dictionary definition, is a person with no soul.
Yeah. And imagine this. You know this, Steve. Imagine you have a situation. Something's hurting you, and you're trying to explain it to someone, and this person's a narcissist, and he goes, tough. You think that's tough? What about what I did to get up here? What about how many times I had to do this? You know how you feel when you go to someone?
Oh, my.
And that's how they come back with? They go, you think that's tough? You know what I went through? That's horrible. And yet there are bosses who actually do that when someone comes and knocks on the door and wants to come and say, boss, I'm really struggling on this project. I'm trying to figure out, you think that stuff? You know, you should probably be in my shoes as the CEO. Can you imagine? That person walks out of the room going, okay, that's not an open door policy. I'm not talking to him.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Interestingly enough, sometimes we all do that. I've done that before, where someone has come in and said something, and I was like, "Wait a minute, what about me?" And so, that takes learning too, because I think we all have a little narcissism in us, and I've learned to make sure don't do that. But especially when you're sitting there in your own little painful little world, and somebody comes in and talks about pain, and then pain is individual. You can't. My
Absolutely.
pain is my pain, and your pain is your pain.
Absolutely.
And so sometimes people get confused with that. But I've learned over the years about that. For sure. And so and actually PJ's helped me out considerably over the past couple of months. Just interacting with him, be able to identify these things. And we've been trying to talk about this topic for narcissism he's been bringing it up for about 4 weeks or so, wanted to bring this topic up. And here we are. I've been avoiding it.
Well, a good reason is because we talked about the imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Think about it. One of the imposter syndromes would be the narcissist, because he's trying to cover up for all this insecurity with all this pomp and blast and bling to make you not see that I'm really an insecure person. But what I'm projecting is, no, I'm the man, and you should be happy to be sitting in my presence type thing.
Wow, yes.
So they're one of the biggest imposters out there. They'll have you believe they're great at everything, and they might succeed only because their narcissism did push them to the positive. It did push them to greater heights because they wanted more.
Yeah.
But the problem is how they treated people as they were getting there.
And I guess the collateral damage along the way.
Absolutely. So if you got 158 million people now who are saying that they have been the target of narcissism, and you only have 326 million people in the United States, that's half, right? That have dealt with a narcissist.
That is a lot of collateral damage along the way, y'all.
And what does that say about a narcissist?
Yeah.
He doesn't go after one person. He's going to attempt to get anyone he can and pull them into his web. He's always looking for followers, if you will, in that sense.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing. Well, hey, just kind of wrapping this up. Again, if you're dealing with a narcissist, we've talked about it already before. Number one, if you can get out, get out. If you can't, then one thing you need to know is know what you want in the situation and know what they want, so that you could try your best to get to a point of getting a resolution. And then third, stick to the objective facts and the evidence in a negotiation with them. I think it's extremely important to do that, because once you start showing the weaknesses and anything like that, then that's when a narcissist just creates collateral damage.
And if you give them a compliment, they're going to fish for more and more. And then if they see that you're more apt to keep giving them compliments, then they think they've got a quote-unquote follower. And then once that's happening, then they're going to come in.
Yeah. And so, hey, y'all, thank you for watching. So be sure to like and to share. Real important. And we got a lot of upcoming things, exciting things coming up. Next month, I'm going to be speaking with JL Turner for their financial literacy series, and we're going to be talking about negotiating pay raises. That's next month. It's going to be at the Belo Mansion. I'll put more information out about that. And then in October, we're going to be doing Lit Night at Sendaga 813. Yeah, that's right. It's going to be Wednesday night. And so if y'all are going to be out and about, that's going to be pretty fun. We're going to be talking about various books. One of the books will be mine as well. And so I think that'll be a lot of fun. And I know, PJ, you've got a couple things coming up as well.
That's right. So I'll be at SMU here soon to talk to the 1Ls about how to network to get a job, the people side of that. I'll also be talking to the energy section in Houston, so I'll be going down there for that, and then working with a couple of private companies that are going to bring me in internally to help with their teams, mostly the law teams.
Yeah, so a lot of activity, and hey, stay tuned. And also, if any of you want to be on my email list, direct message me your email. I sent out a blast earlier this week, and I'm going to be sending out more of those kinds of things. Just kind of keeping people apprised of various different things related to negotiation and whatnot. And so, hey, do that. Please do so. And again, like, share, We really appreciate you guys and taking the time out. And when you watch this later, you can still send messages. We're watching. We're paying attention. We'll respond and everything else.
That's exactly right. So there will be a recorded version of this. So if you didn't get to catch all this, or your boss came up and you had to turn your laptop down or something like that, there will be a recorded version of this, and you'll be able to see that on the Boss Negotiator class and also on the Dunn Coaching, Dunn Consulting page, and
That's
also
right.
PJ Dunn TV on YouTube. So
That's right.
Go there, get your mental vitamins from there.
Yes, you heard that. DJ Dunn, the Dr. Phil of Dallas. You want to get mental vitamins, you need to go there. Hey, well, thank you for joining. We'll see you very, very soon, and have a great day, okay?
See y'all.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.